Have you ever dreamed of living in the extreme corners of life? What if I told you the fact that this same place has the most impressive women in Europe and is home to the largest ice hotel in the world? Moreover, I'm talking about a place where architecture and culture blend in a unique atmosphere with a city almost completely swallowed by the ground. These intriguing facts are just the starting points of this fascinating country that you can explore. This is Sweden, the northernmost part of Scandinavia. Our journey in the distant lands of Sweden begins. Sweden is a Scandinavian country located in the extreme north of the world and has a perfect splendor. Even if the climate and weather conditions can be freezing cold at times, the northern lands of Sweden are truly an untouched paradise. The northern villages of Sweden are dark and poorly lit most of the year. In winter, it is almost always dark and cloudy. The sun is not seen in the sky most of the time, and your surroundings are always dark. In summer, the sun almost never wants to go down. The sun makes itself slightly visible in one corner of the sky and sheds light on people's lives, so you can see the sun 24 hours a day. This is called the midnight sun. The reason for this unusual phenomenon in this northern point of the world is related to the cycle of our planet around the sun, so that the peasant people of Sweden scream and rejoice when they see the sun above the horizon in winter. In this land far from the city life, the minority of peasant people in this land far from the city life lead a special life in accordance with the culture of Sweden. It can drop to 30 degrees Celsius, and people are in an intense effort to keep the house warm. They start chopping wood before winter comes and make plenty of stocks in the warehouse of their houses. And there is not much work discrimination between men and women and Swedish people. For example, a Scandinavian woman never holds herself back from a man, just as in the past in the Vikings. Women fought like a man and showed up in wars instead of taking care of children at home. Today, Scandinavian women can chop wood like a man or paint all day in Sweden. In these lands, heating is indeed the most important need. When people feel cold, they say that their energy is lost and they feel exhausted. In order to keep warm inside, they do not have air conditioners or natural gas systems. Almost every village house has plenty of wood stoves. People start to cut winter wood in the summer and keep their supplies ready before winter. Sometimes, even burning buckets of wood is not enough to heat a small house in the northern villages of Sweden, so they develop different methods. For example, they collect pine cones from the forest. Then they break a few candles into pieces and melt the candles in a container filled with water. Then they pour the pine cones into the container filled with melted candles and cover the pine cones with wax, so that when the pine cones are thrown into the wood stove, they burn longer and give off more heat to the environment, which contributes significantly to heating the house of a Swedish family. Located on the Scandinavian peninsula in northern Europe, Sweden has a land border with Norway to the west, Finland to the east, and the Baltic Sea to the south. With an area of approximately 450,000 kilometers, Sweden is the third largest country in the European Union. Despite its impressive size, its population is under 10 million, making it one of the most sparsely populated countries on the continent. This also helps Sweden to maintain its reputation as one of the most beautiful countries in Europe by preserving its vast natural areas. One of the most attractive tourist spots is the Stockholm archipelago with its thousands of islands scattered along the east coast. Imagine colorful little houses, crystal clear waters, and postcard-perfect scenery. Explore the small islands, do water sports, or just relax in nature. There is another magnificent detail in the sky in this geography. The northern lights are almost dancing in the sky. The view that greets you after a nice dinner in a nature with plenty of oxygen is really fascinating and dazzling. Even if you watch it for hours, you don't get bored and don't want to take your eyes off this visual feast. I understand well that nature is really worth seeing and exploring, and to witness this splendor it is necessary to escape from the unpleasant life of the modern world. So much so that Sweden is one of the countries where the northern lights are seen most intensely. And people from many parts of the world come to this land to escape the cities and enjoy this visual feast, the blending of pale blue dots in the sky with shades of green, and the way this color harmony is adorned with faint stars makes you feel connected to it. Probably we will never see this view even in almost any movie frame. It is a great chance that the indigenous people of Sweden have access to this privilege spontaneously. In this land far from the city in Sweden, people have another hobby where they use cutting tools to make a hole in the frozen river and then undress and go into the water. This is called ice bathing, and many Nordic regions, including Scandinavia, claim that ice bathing is very good for the health of the body. In other words, the body. They say it rejuvenates them. And similar activities are practiced by almost every people in extremely cold regions, such as Yakutia and Grönland. They can take ice baths not only during the day, but also at night. The isolated peoples of Scandinavia use frozen lakes to wash their clothes. They cut and wash their clothes at home in the cold water under the ice. And in these houses in the forest, there are often no washing machines, and the drainage systems of technological devices have not reached these untouched parts of Sweden, where people do not even have easy access to tap water because there is very little settlement. In winter, the water pipes often freeze and no water comes out of the taps, so people have a hard time finding water, which is why washing clothes is one of the most laborious tasks of life under heavy snow. Another challenge of village life in Sweden is that their hut-like houses can often be buried under the snow. In order to prevent this, they have to constantly clean the accumulated snow because the thickness of the snow on the roofs becomes too heavy after a while, and the thick layers of snow prepare the ground for the collapse of the roofs. And they also have to paint the walls of their houses frequently because the snow falling on the houses. The water penetrates from the exterior to the interior walls and leaves traces of water on the walls. These layers of damp water cause the walls to erode, get damp, and rot. So winter in Sweden is never easy, and people have to keep the area they live in constantly well maintained. There is one thing you may notice about Swedish village houses. You see that the houses are usually made of wood, and these wooden houses are usually painted in shades of red. In the 1500s, the King of Sweden visited Europe, and he was very impressed by the castle-style buildings there. Europe was richer than Sweden at that time, and the buildings the king saw were usually in shades of red. When he returns to his country, he says that the houses look simpler and poorer than the houses in Europe, and he has the house he lives in painted red like in Europe. From that moment on, red-colored houses become places where rich and high-ranking people stay in Sweden. Over time, soldiers and even peasants imitate their king, and the village houses of Sweden are painted red. In addition, the roofs of the houses resemble a triangle because in order to prevent the snow and rain from accumulating on the roof in winter, people design the roofs of their houses in the shape of a triangle so that the snow falls off the roof more easily. So building houses with triangular roofs was actually born out of necessity rather than architecture. Heavy snow and rains required houses with triangular roofs. Nature is the basis of life, and people need the presence of pure emotions. One world without nature is like one emotionless body without a heart. So love nature and always be in favor of naturalness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if we like the video. Goodbye.